grandmother hanging clothes up on the clothesline when it came down, and she thought it was actually going to hit the house and ducked. I mean, obviously that was a long time ago. So, but what I can tell you is as a community, we are saddened by the event, but very happy that we've all pulled together and continue to pull together as a community on any type of event that we have within our jurisdiction here. But I just wanted to pass that on more so for the families as someone so young that I can tell you what I've heard about this event. Thank you.
He didn't talk quite as long. We're moving along. I think we'll jump a couple of speakers up to fill in the time before we have the reading. Bill Hopper, would you like to come up?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, Roger. First of all, I just want to say that this is amazing. I mean, to see 50 years later family coming out here to this event, and I want to just say that it just shows how much you care about these people, that their memories are still with you, and it's just absolutely amazing to see a row of family here 50 years later, and thank you very much, and I'm sure that your family thanks you very much. And then also the Blossburg community. This community, I mean, to see 50 years later that to come up with to have an event like this is truly, it's phenomenal, and I'm sure the families thank everybody here in this Blossburg community very much. I am the Director of Aviation at Elmira Corning Regional Airport, so as people that were on the property that I work every day, we're probably the last people to see many of these people on that plane. And and I want to thank Roger very much for inviting me out here, so that I can kind of speak to just kind of the timeline as to how this all took place. And first of all, it was a flight. It was Mohawk flight number 40, and Mohawk Airlines is no longer around. I think it may even be a part of American in some way, just with all the mergers and everything. But it flew into Elmira from Syracuse. They used to have these short hops. And it picked up passengers in Elmira and then continued on to Washington, D.C. Now, the time it departed was 2:39 p.m. And 5 minutes later, it was cleared to 6,000 feet. And 5 minutes later, it was the last communication that the pilot had with the air traffic control. So that was the last time the pilot talked to the outside world, was 5 minutes after this plane departed. And then at 2:47, 3 minutes later, it lost radar. And so all this occurred over an 8-minute period from the time it left the ground. They did. The nice thing about that when we have something like this is that we always make things safer. It's unfortunate they occur in the first place. However, aviation lessons were learned from this event, and it's just these things that kind of take place where you don't think they're ever going to happen, and then they do happen. And what they did was it was basically an area where there could be combustion that was near what we call the auxiliary power unit, which is it's a power unit on the ground. That's used to power up an aircraft on the ground, so you save fuel when the aircraft is on the ground. Unfortunately, it combusted and was able to get into the tail of the airplane, which caused the crash, of course. And since then, all airplanes, you cannot have this kind of combination of combustible material with anything with a flame source. So there were lessons learned, and I just want to say that I'm an aviation geek. I mean, that's what I'm in the career for and everything. And so I love aviation. However, I know it's not perfect. It is the safest means of travel. To think it took me 50 minutes to drive here from Elmira today, and it only took 8 minutes for that plane to get here from there. So that shows you how quick, and not only that, how safe it is. But unfortunately, these things do have some bad events. And I'm just happy that we did learn from it. Just in closing, I just want to thank Roger again. I want to thank this community, and I want to thank the family members that are here. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Mr. Pat, I didn't write anything, so we'll see how this goes.
Rupert Emery Patton Jr. was one of the 34 on that flight. My name is Rupert Emery Patton III. I was 4 years old. My mom was 23. 50 years ago, all of us experienced something that everybody here is going to experience. We lost a loved one. We lost it in a way that was a little more acute, a little more traumatic than some of our other losses. But every one of us is going to lose loved ones. 50 years ago, this town experienced something that very few towns experience. Y'all went to a site that was very horrific. I can still hear the emotion from the people here that are haunted. And to quote Mayor Nickerson, that's a testimony to this town. The reason I want to come up here today is I want to thank this town. I want to thank this town for the efforts y'all made that day, for the first responders' efforts that they made that day. I want to thank you for the honoring of our family members for being here today and how much that honors it. For the fact that it still haunts you shows that you understood that there were 34 people that you didn't even know, that you were saddened for what was our loss. And for the first responders who stand ready to help those in need, like our family was that day, if anything like that were to happen again today. On behalf of my family, my mom, our boys, and hopefully I can speak for these other families, I want to tell the members of Blossburg, thank you. Thank you for that day, and thank you for today.
I guess, no, I just want to cut in now. Plenty of time.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Will Schlosser with the United States Air Force Auxiliary. Locally, I have Miles' job a couple generations back. I'm the Blossburg Elementary School band director. Roger had asked us to come in and talk about what our role is and what safety improvements have happened since Flight 40. Civil Air Patrol was started in 1941 to aid in the defense of the country and to do search and rescue. So one of the huge things that we do is we look for aircraft that have unfortunately crashed. This would have not been a very difficult one because it was right here. But every aircraft, even in the 1960s, had a little beacon in it, and it's activated by a ground strike. So we have the equipment to find that beacon. In 1960, there was nothing looking for that beacon. It was a radio frequency. So only another aircraft overhead would have heard the signal. In 1967, the Russians and the United States put up satellites to cover the world to listen for that frequency. So what would happen, they would find that signal, they would wait for the satellite to pass 3 times, and then they'd launch us to go find the aircraft. As of about 3 years ago, those satellites are no longer operational, but a new set is up. And those satellites just stick right on where they are. And as soon as that signal comes up, we know exactly where that aircraft is. So we went from large searches to now I get phone calls and I know within 9 meters of where that aircraft is. That is a huge, huge leap. Searches would take days and days and days. Locally, although Tioga County has not experienced many aircraft crashes, Pennsylvania has. And I've had the distinction of serving as an incident commander on many of them. We just had one over in Hilton not too long ago where over 100 of my personnel were involved in the search and ultimate recovery of the aircraft and the passengers on board those air flights as well. But I'd like to go off of what everyone here has said. When we were in Hilton, 100 of my guys came from all over Pennsylvania and New York. But it was the local community that opened up their schools. The local gas station brought us food, and they just helped out. And that's the community of aviation. And it's the community of our small towns that help out whenever there is any sort of incidents that occurs. I can always count on our neighbors to make sure that we're okay, and then we'll get through. The community of Blossburg is an absolute joy to work in, and I'm sure that if we were to have an incident, we were absolutely be able to handle it and make sure that we provide whatever was necessary for those survivors and for their family as well. I'd also like to make mention of the airmen that were involved in the flight crew. There's many accounts of the aircrafts just leveling out over the treetops. Science might prove that different, but I know in the aircraft I'm always looking forward for my buddy who's next to me and making sure that we can cause the least amount of harm should something go wrong. We brief every time we take off. Where do we put this if there's an incident? And that air crew, I'm sure, tried to figure out a way to make sure they didn't hit the town of Blossburg. So I'd like to make mention of that air crew, their experience. So thank you very much for doing this. Pennsylvania's experience, it's surefire, lots of aviation accidents, but this is one that changed and shaped aviation forever. Thank you.
Was there any of the other family members that any of you want to comment or speak with? Rick, did you want to say something? At the end. You can speak now because I have some time before I go. I was going to say, yeah, at the end of that. Yes. Okay. Was there anybody else that had any other stories or anything they wanted to share with the families or anybody here today? I'll speak briefly on our. We're raising money for the monument. The total cost of that project is going to be around $7,000. We have secured 3 for that, so the stone can be ordered. The placing of that will be just below this tent here in this area where there's a bench below this walking path. It will be facing, looking up east over the hill up here. We'll have the list of the brief history of the accident, the donors on there, and they'll have the listing of all the names on the stone. It'll be a black granite stone, and ironically, the one that I picked out it's a large. It'll be a 4 foot high with a 4 foot base, and it's actually like similar to the tip of a wing. So it's not going to be your average just a stone or a mark or something like that. So it's going to be very attractive. I think everybody will be very happy with it. We do have some time here. I think the speakers didn't pace their time out, did they? At 2:50, I'm going to stop and we're going to have a moment of silence. That's why I asked if anybody else had anything else to share during that time.
I don't know. I'm recording this whole thing.
So this is my mom, Patricia Bullock, and she was the wife of the pilot who was flying the plane that day. And she was left with 4 boys, 16, 14, 12, and 10. And my brother Bernie was 16 years old, and he took after my father and became a cadet at the Air Force Academy, and then flew for the Air Force, and then flew for U.S. Air, which was the descendant airline of Mohawk. So Mohawk was bought out by Allegheny, and then became U.S. Air, and then became American. Is that right, Bernie? How it happened? Right. And my brother Bernie flew for U.S. Air for many years, and then flew for Emirates Airline, and now trains pilots internationally. And my brother Bernie is the expert on the Air Force and all of the details of the flight, and he's the guy to talk to about that stuff. My life went a little bit different direction. I was a 10-year-old boy, and I ultimately became a minister, and I wanted to speak for a moment of my mom's response and her faith that was right. Very strong at the time. This is how she responded. My mom and dad had just built a home, and when the plane went down, she was very concerned about being able to stay in the home, being able to take care of the kids, being able to handle all of that. And I remember her saying to us, she said, boys, she said, don't worry, the Lord has told me He's going to take care of us. And my mom had been a stay-at-home mom. She hadn't taught and done anything since, my brother Bernie had been born. And she went to our local school district where we lived, and she walked in and talked to the elementary principal there. And of course everybody knew what had happened. And she had a college degree but no education. But the elementary school principal said to her, well, if you're willing to go back to school, we got a job for you. And so she taught for 15 years as an elementary school teacher. She paid the bills that we were worried about being able to pay. And she took care of us. And she actually had to go and get her master's degree at Syracuse University to be able to do that. And so she would teach during the day. At night, she'd go to Syracuse University and she'd study. And she got her master's degree. And she was a hero. And so I just want to thank God for her response and for His provision of a job, and just for the way our family was taken care of in spite of this very tragic event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take this home, put this microphone. Okay? Sorry, it's not in the bottle. I'm told you may not get on a plane with this, but that's what they told me. But I'm sure you can plead. Okay? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I guess we have still a few minutes here. I just want to keep on schedule with our reading. Was there any possibility anybody had any last minute stories? Any of the speakers have anything else you want to add to the? Bernie, did you want to say? Appreciate it. My name is Bernie Bullock, and the oldest son of the captain there. Speaking is not necessarily my forte here. I'm not very used to that, so forgive me for my faux pas. But there's a couple of things that come to mind as I watch this. Number one, it never occurred to me how this accident affected Blossburg. It affected me in such a way that I never dared to come here. It was just simply too raw. But as I see all these individuals here and how it affected your community, it really overwhelms me. And number two, my other thought is how life has gone on. Like, for example, my brother didn't mention it, but he has 4 daughters, and his 4 daughters have children. And regardless of this tragedy, life has really gone on to be something special. I have 4 children, 5 children, and several grandchildren now. My father instilled me a love in flying, so life is better for us than it was even for my father and for my mother. And that's the way life is in our country anyway. Your community is so much better, so much more prepared for disasters like this now than it ever was back then. The community would be able to respond in a heartbeat in many more ways than it ever did before. So this was a tragic event, but life has gone on, and I won't say we're all better for it, but we've all learned from it, and things are better today than they were then. Thank you. have a little break here for a little bit. So if anybody wants any water, there's a cooler over here. Please help yourself. But we're going to have our reading at 2:50. I just wanted to stay on track with that. So if anybody else feels free to